Hello, I'm Nathan Martin
And I'm Aline Ramir.
of the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Jim Carrey and his Enlightened antics when he was getting interviewed. If this is something that interests you, stay tuned. So Jim Carrey stirred up a whole lot of controversy online just recently and in the media with his comments about how this is all meaningless and how there is no me and we're all just a bunch of tetrahedrons that are interlocking and having this dance of consciousness. And really, the big comment was that life is meaningless. There is no meaning in this. There is no meaning. And we would like to actually discuss this because this is actually a very common issue, is it not? We've been seeing this for years, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's actually a term for this called the pre-trans fallacy. We've actually seen this before as well for many years, but we didn't know that it was called the pre-trans fallacy, which was something that Ken Wilber spoke of. And we always called it the two unities. There's two forms of unity consciousness. There's the mother's, sucking on the mother's teat. There's the being in her womb version of unity where you are still an infant and you are connected to the mother. And most forms of socialism, communism, and that kind of thing actually take from that kind of form of consciousness. It's very much enmeshment. It's very much, it's you lose your identity into the collective and into the group because you are one with the mother still. You have not actually pulled yourself apart and separated and individuated from mommy. You are very much still connected. And that is the kind of unity that people have said, like in Star Trek, you had the Borg, and the Borg would assimilate everybody and create a hive mind. And I know we're called the Divine Pollination Hive, but that's for a very specific reason, because we are not a hive mind. We are not about the hive in that kind of a fashion. We're not about just being this collective one. And then there is the post version or the trans version. So that is the pre version of unity. Then you have the post version of unity. And the post version of unity is where you become an individual. You no longer are stuck to mama's teat. You're no longer in her womb. You have grown up. You have matured. You've gone through the rational process. You've developed your personality. You have a functional ego and persona. And now you are past that state. Now you have everything at your access to you. You're able to connect to all these different things. So you can connect to rationality. So they call it the trans-rational state. So if you have the first state is the pre-rational state, the middle state is the rational state, and then after that is the trans-rational state. The problem is what Ken Wilber said is that the pre-rational state and the post-rational state look very similar because there's no rationality there. They're pre and post-rationality. Well, what is pre-rationality called? Knowledge. What is post-rationality called? Wisdom. What is in the middle? Rationality, logic. So you have knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Knowledge being, asking questions like what, who, where, when. The middle stage is the why. This is also where we get empathy. So empathy and logic both ask why questions and both grant understanding. And then the post-rational phase is wisdom, and that is how. That is your actual manifestations and your actions. Now, if you go straight from there without any meaning, Jim Carrey, if you bypass around your meaning, then what's going to happen is you're going to have what? You're going to have folly, foolishness, because there's no rationality to it. There's no meaning. You just skipped from here to there without a bridge. In logic, you have logic is the bridge between knowledge and wisdom. When Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, the life, no man gets to the Father but through me, he's talking about logic. He is the personification of logic. No man gets to heaven, the state of wisdom, without first going through the rational state, the logos. Jesus is the logos in the Bible, the word of God or the logic of God. It is a metaphor. We need to start seeing these things with metaphors. So what is your take on Mr. Jim and his enlightened rant?
Well, the first thing that was shocking to me a bit was that there were so many people who thought this to be a state of being that was preferred somehow.
And profound, yeah.
And profound, yeah, and profound. Like, if you look a lot of people who are more down to earth, practical people will be the people that kind of point out this is not normal behavior. They will see that something is really not logical about it. And then the more spiritual people, they will be the ones that are like, no, he has really got, he's transcended and he's there. And that just doesn't, that was shocking to me.
Yeah.
It was shocking. And
so many people are like, ooh, he's alive and he knows what he's talking about.
And yeah, to take that as an example, to me, feels a little bit dangerous. And because there is really no, you could very clearly see that this person has problems right now. And I for quite some time has had problems. Like he has had other moments where he showed himself in the media and stuff where you could see that he was not on his best. He was hurting and stuff was going wrong. And yeah, I was mostly shocked about how there were so many people talking about it, and that there is so many people that are assuming that he has arrived.
And really what's really sad about the whole thing is Jim needs help. He actually needs to be able to go inside and start working on his issues and stop using spiritual bypassing to get around understanding himself. No. Everybody's like, well, he's ascended, he's transcended it. He has self-realization. Well, you know what? No self-realized person is going to say that. They're not going to go around saying what Jim just said there because it's ridiculous. No. You have somebody who's transcended the rational state. They're now in wisdom. They still have access to all the states that came prior. They didn't just like do away with rationality because they have now transcended rationality. All they've done is they now have rationality in their tool belt.
Now, of course, we look at Jim Carrey because he's a public figure. And it's not like we're singling him out because
he's just a good example.
Yeah, he's a good example for so much that we see all around us. It's not just him. And I don't know him personally. So I just go by this little, 4 or 5 minute clip that got so much commotion around it. But I could see some stuff like if you look at the pattern for how he's relating, and then you look at the pattern of what I see people around me sometimes relate, then I can see, I can see the connection. I can see how it actually works. And this is actually, in my mind, a more dangerous state of being to be in than the state of being where you don't really know about spirituality. You don't really know how it works, where you're like, you read some books, you think, okay, now I got there, and now all of a sudden you don't have to work anymore, and it's all done. And underneath there's so much trauma and so much work that is left to be done. Yep. But you will not get there anymore because there is a layer of, I don't even know what to call it.
Well, they call it spiritual bypassing. Yeah. You're spiritual bypassing around your trauma. You're spiritual bypassing around everything that needs to be seen within yourself, everything that needs to be understood. It's what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is understanding. What is love? Love is understanding. You have to be able to understand yourself to love yourself and to love others. Osho actually talked about how compassion without awareness is evil. It's destructive. It causes all kinds of problems. It's that the compassionate people that lack understanding, aka the rational phase, the rational state, they're do-gooders. And they're some of the most destructive people out there because they're doing good, but good has not come into their own being. No. And so I think that's something that's really important. So I'm going to read a quote by Ken Wilber in a video that he has. If you just Google the pre-trans fallacy, it's the first video that had come up by Ken Wilber. And he had this to say: a lot of individuals with therapeutic problems, particularly borderline therapeutic problems, were attracted to the philosophy of Buddhism because they were making this mistake. And they were using the trans-rational Buddhist philosophy of emptiness to rationalize their own pre-rational states of emptiness and fragmentation and pathology. And actually, this made their states worse. And so we've seen this over and over and over again with people, and not just with Jim Carrey. We've seen this a lot. I mean, people come to us and they start trying to talk and reason with us, but they've already arrived, they've gone on, and really what they kind of develop a sense of arrogance and pride. They have like this unearned sense of moral superiority because they've arrived, they've transcended it. They don't have the same problems that you have because you have rationality still.
They're over it. And the biggest problem is they don't have a question anymore. They don't have a question whatsoever. They know everything already. They know there's just nothing is real. Nothing is supposed to cause a problem. If they feel something personally inside of themselves, they don't see it as real. They see it as something that's not really real, and it's not mine, and I don't have to look at it. And the most enlightened thing to do is just to act as if it's not there. And this is the kind of person you can't work with, because they don't look at it anymore. They've arrived.
Yep. So the pre-trans fallacy, you could also say that's spiritual bypassing. It's the enlightened ego phase, where people now all of a sudden the ego starts hiding behind enlightenment and pretending to be enlightened. And see, we don't really need to get rid of our ego. Our ego is our conscious self. We need to be able to integrate the ego into the overall state of being, because we have our unconscious and we have our subconscious, and the ego only governs the conscious. And so we need to be able to integrate the three into what's called selfhood. And Carl Jung, the great mystic and psychologist, called that the individuation process in achieving selfhood. Individuating from what? From mother, from that connection, so that you are now a whole person. And they have other things wrapped up in that as well. It's a gross oversimplification, but it's very important that we do the work, and that we don't just, I'm arrived. I mean, we have to be able to have that question open. We have to keep asking ourselves again and again and again, who am I? What am I here for? What am I seeing and experiencing in this moment? What is it showing me about myself? Because when we have an experience, it shows us something about ourselves. But if we're now just interacting with the mirrors that are in our life as if they're meaningless and they don't show us anything about ourselves, then we're really just deceived and self-deceived really, really bad. Anything to add?
No, I think that's about summing it up, everything that we thought about it.
So these people, including Jim Carrey, they haven't arrived. In fact, they have a lot of pathologies that they are now avoiding, and they really need to work on themselves. And we need to not enable this and think this is some transcended behavior when it's obviously not. If you enjoyed this video, please click like.
If you'd like to stay up to date with our videos, please subscribe.
If you would like to be notified via email whenever we release a video, please click the bell next to subscribe.
If you have any comments or questions and would like to dialogue about this topic, please leave them below.
If you're interested in becoming a patron and having special access to our community, please visit our Patreon page linked below.
We're Nathan and Aline from the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com.
Be safe.
Be sovereign.
Be well.